Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to another exciting edition of Product Hour Live. This is going to be back to the days of automation, core automation, and making your automation reliable, strong. We have released a new developer tool, that's Inspector tool, that's available in your VS Code extensions. That's going to give you, the developers, the flexibility, at the same time, the power, at the same time, the convenience. So I'm so excited to host one of my very close colleagues, Kari, on the show, who leads the engineering for developer tools at Robocorp and Semaphore. We will go through in detail about this tool, what it offers, how you can get started with it, and what are some of the best practices. So I'm excited to host this particular session. If you can hear me okay, just drop me a text on the comments. Please feel free to drop any questions that you have during the session. We will dedicatedly take questions at the end, but don't stop until then. If there is some context that needs to be answered, we'll be happy to pick those questions right there and then. Thank you so much again for joining another edition. Welcome. Let us, however, start with the usual segment, the monthly product roundup. I've promised Kari that I'm going to keep it very short so that we spend most of the time on the Inspector tool. But not to break the pattern, let's start with the monthly product roundup. Let me bring up my screen. There were days when I used to have Tommy as the program director. Tommy is probably traveling somewhere, so he couldn't join me today, helping me set this up. But here we are. So all the goodness in one month. The last month itself, we have released quite some significant updates, especially on the AI action side. We had a series of webinars and Product Hour Live focusing on AI actions, where we are bringing generative AI capabilities into enterprise beyond just thinking and chatting with you or responding to emails, but really getting getting execution capabilities to AI with AI actions. We have introduced Pydantic support for that. We have also expanded our core automation capabilities with keywords, and there's a new addition in the Inspector tool, which is a Java inspector that's been released in the last month itself. Yeah, it's not last quarter, it's just the last month. Quickly, I will follow up this update with a very quick video, a detailed video on the Pydantic support. But at a high level, what we have done with AI actions is introducing ability to handle complex data structures. So instead of just relying on string and integers to be passed from and to your AI applications, your Gen AI applications, whether it is built on OpenGPTs or OpenAI's ChatGPT or any other generative AI applications that you build, what we have introduced now is your ability to build your own complex data structure, which can give type hints, ensure that the data that you receive is already validated, and ensure that there is reliability when there is a data that passes between your GPTs to your AI actions and back. So that support is already available. You can go beyond simple strings and integers and booleans and float, but really create a data structure that suits your use case and comfortably validate it even before you execute an action. So that's Pydantic support. The next one is on the set of expanded keywords. We haven't spoken about new core capabilities of automation, but we have kept improving that. For example, in Google Cloud, we have added few keywords to detect tables if there is a tabular data on your sheets, or even extract formulas. Excel applications have gotten few more updates, which were actually coming from your own feedback. So we appreciate your feedback. Let us know what type of activities that you think are needed to make your automation successful. We keep adding those things. And we keep releasing, not quarterly, where we do releases almost every Friday. So keep us updated on the things that you require for your automations. Finally, the Java inspector tool. So the first version of the new inspector that we tool released was on web, followed by Windows. Now we have also released a specific specific widget within the inspector tool to extract elements and deal with elements, complex elements with Java applications also. We will see this as part of today's demo itself with Kari. We will also discuss about why did we redesign this inspector tool. While the world is moving into the AI frenzy days, why do we even need a new inspector tool? So with that, let me bring on stage Kari. Kari is our engineering director. Let us bring him on stage. Before that, let me add some this and this. Hey, Kari, how are you?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well, loud and clear. I hope everybody else also hears you. Okay.
Good.
Thanks for joining, Kari. How are you? Where are you from? Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. So doing fine. I'm here in the cold north of Finland. So it's only, let me check. It's not snowing right now, but just around the corner is summer. So we're waiting for that patiently.
Do you have something called a spring at all?
Well, it depends on the year. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Is this the lucky year or not? Seems not.
Let's see. Let's see. It only snowed yesterday, so.
Cool. Kari, thanks for joining. Can you tell us a bit about what you do at Robocorp?
Yeah. So
and now Semaphore.
And now Semaphore specifically. So yeah, I've been around since the beginning days, and people who are in the customer Slacks have probably seen me bouncing around there. But right now I'm the engineering director of the dev tool. So anything that has to do with VS Code, the Electron applications we release and the libraries, those fall under my umbrella. And yeah, we were supposed to have one of my team members along Cosmin or Cosmo in our namesakes. He's sick right now, but I have to give big props on the things that I'm about to show, though. So I haven't implemented any of these things. I'm the messenger, and I'm really proud of my team to be showing these things off.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome, Kari. So before we actually get into the demos itself and showing the product, what's the reason behind this new inspector tool? We did have some widgets. We did have some capability to kind of inspect elements both on web and Windows. So why do you need it to build something new?
Yeah, so previously we had the inspector that was kind of detached. We were calling it for multiple applications, but now that we're basically fully focused on VS Code, we decided that let's integrate it into the extension, which makes the installation much less frictionless. It makes startup times much faster and all of these things. But the big thing, why we need the locator. So on that front, the world, like you said, is moving fast into the AI world, but still, when you're having to automate complex websites, older applications, whatever, the core problem is that the UIs are dynamical. There are a ton of frameworks, both on web and Windows automations, and the developers of the tools and the sites decide how they use specific fields and IDs and these kind of things. So that means that we rarely see the record and playback actually working, because the recorder is only as good as the locator logic that is able to get.
Correct.
And that's also what we had. I don't want to bash our tools, but also our previous inspector, we were trying to guess the best possible locator for you. And then when we fail, or when the recorder fails, you're kind of left to your own devices, and then you have to go manually create the locators. So that was the big push for the inspectors, is that we want to go to the center. We want to give a good picking experience, while giving the full power of control the locator in all of its aspects. So
correct.
I think we need the thing and why we've implemented.
Yeah. I think on the AI aspect, right? There were also some debates internally and also externally. If LLMs could actually guess the locators, if I just put the HTML, what's your view on it?
It is, of course, getting better. There's a common phrase that the AIs are the worst that they will ever be. So they're only getting better. But still, in the cases where you actually have to have deterministic outcomes, that you know that, okay, this logic actually goes to that field. That's where the locators and the automation code is still, I think, needed for a while, especially in the enterprise side.
Exactly. I mean, to add to that, right? Like with the conversations that we've been having with customers and partners, not only on AI but in automation in general, is that it is not good if it's 90% accurate, right? And the problem with LLM based or recording based locator strategies is that, like, it's 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, it is good, but that's not good enough to be put in production, because there are so many implications of one's action being wrong. So it's important that we take advantage of goodness of those record and play and LLM based strategies, but I think it's quite important that we give the power to the developers, the flexibility to the developers, because they understand the applications better, they understand the on the ground scenarios better, so that we could give them all these options, whether it is XPath or others, but also the ability to choose.
Yeah, and I do think that the LLMs are coming and the AIs are coming. So basically, they are getting better at creating locators, and there's definitely a future in there. But still, I think once the locators have been created and the actual core of the automation could be generated by the AI, you still need to kind of be able to execute it in some cases, not in all cases. It's an ever-changing world, and the speed is kind of terrifying for an old dog like me at times, but it is really awesome what those things can do. So yeah, let's see in a half a year where we are.
Yeah. Cool, Kari. So let's now head over to the inspector tool, and how do we get started? Like, how do we get the new inspector installed?
Yeah, so maybe I'll share my screen and let's get started that way. So
are you ready to share? I can bring
yes, let's go. So essentially, yeah, we went through why do we need the thing. So the next is where, and you can get the Robocorp Code extension directly from the VS Code extensions, Robocorp Code, or you can go into the marketplace and install it from there. And like I said, everything is contained in the extension. So right, previously we had like extra requirements for installing web views and stuff like that. Those are now gone. This is now fully inside the extension. So let's jump out into the inspector itself. So I have a really simple base bot here. I will not be focusing too much on the code unless we want to go there, post the questions. Let's see where we get to. But I do want to kind of highlight the inspector itself. So essentially, once you have the extension, you get our side panel here. I do like to focus that finding this has been a bit of a struggle sometimes, but when you find it, you have all sorts of cool little things there. So you can see the package resources in here, and here you can see web, Windows, image, Java, locators. And we also have the playwright recorder still here. And I'll dip a bit into that when we go forward. I will be using the RPA challenge as an example. We'll start from the web. Then I'll move into Windows and Java and the image-based locators at the last. There are a lot of commonalities between this, and what Cosmo and the team have done a really good job is trying to keep the usability and the user experience of the tool same throughout these very different backends and things that have to be done. So essentially, to reiterate the problem, the UIs are dynamical, and they are getting more and more dynamic every day. So The RPA challenge is a good website to present that. So those who don't know, this is kind of a test site where all the fields change places, they change IDs, they're highly dynamical in the logic space. So the challenge is to fill in this form 10 times over, and yeah, there's all sorts of speed contests and things like this happening. But this kind of presents the problem quite clearly. Now, if we use a recorder, I took this with the Playwright recorder, which is an awesome tool, don't get me wrong. It's one of the best recorders out there, and you can launch it just from the side panel. But this kind of shows the problem. You can see the locators here that, let's say the first name field has this kind of a locator. So it doesn't look really, it looks awfully dynamic because it's just gibberish. The other thing that the recorders take is they take every single misclick that you do, all the tab presses and all of these kind of things. So if I were to take this code, I would have to go in, or I should go in and remove all the extra tab presses and stuff like that, because the automation, the final automation should not need this. So this is the kind of the basis of the problem, and why we see that the record and playback rarely works long time and provides like solid, repeatable automation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's enough talking. Let's jump into the actual stuff. So I'll jump into the web locators first. Oh, well, first I'll show the Locator Manager. So here you can see all the saved locators. You can see the web, Windows, Java, and image-based locators. You can control them here. You can edit them also in here. You can select the actions. I'll go into these in more detail. You can save and change the names that are saved. And let's say, for example, for the image-based locators, you can see the screenshots and all of these things. So they are all maintained in one place. And you can see what project you're working in and all of these things. And then on the top, you can go into the specific inspectors. And you can, of course, access the specific inspectors from here as well. So let's get started with the web locators. And this is another new thing that we have, is that previously we were shutting down the browser and all of that stuff. So you had to kind of keep logging in and logging out. So now when you come in and you want to automate a site, you can put it in the top. You can even control the viewport side. So I'm doing this stuff for the demo so that my view size is enough. So it spins up the browser and it goes to the inspection mode. So now you have the highlight, and this is where we differ. So this is why I say that we're not a full-on recorder, but we try to be a good in-between of a recorder and a picker. So basically, you can just pick anything from here. You're not really interacting with the website. But let's pick out the first name, for example. Now this shows the problem. That seems awfully dynamic. So let me jump back and show you. So at the bottom of the screen, you can see that there's right-click to pause the inspector. So now I can interact with the submit button, for example. So I'll refresh the site and re-pick the first name. So immediately you can see that, okay, the ID is clearly dynamical. So what to do? Strategies. So we provide these 6 different strategies that you can kind of pick from. And basically looking from here, I can immediately see that, okay, this one takes a label that contains first name and then picks out the input after that. So that to me seems like a really solid locator already. But if it's not to your liking, you can go in here and write it yourself. So if you know XPath, you have the full control to actually do whatever kind of locator you want. So these are kind of the best cases that we provide. That these are usually the ones that hit. One of these, I'm 95% sure that one of these will hit, and you can just pick out and be done with it. Then we have the actions. So basically, you can create the full-on code in the inspector where you're doing it. So you can select between the options. And again, when you go into the code in your code editor, you can then, of course, use all the things. But here we have most of the things. And I can also add in like arguments. So let me fill in something. And you can see that the code is generated automatically. One of the key things that we wanted to provide, and this goes throughout all the inspectors, is that you always have a validate button in here. So it basically shows that, okay, how many elements do I get a hit from? And then we can, of course, copy the code and do these kind of things. Delete if I made a mistake, I can pull back. So basically, you could kind of record or pick whatever. Pick your poison, what verbiage you want to use. And then let me take, for example, the click button. I press it twice. Let me remove that one. So basically, now I've recorded a bunch of these things, and then I can go in and check that, okay, company name, last name looks good. Role looks good. Address. And then I have the button. So I know the site too well. I know that the second child would work, but let me still pick out the submit input type, and I'll select the click one. So now I have kind of a full-on code ready, and I want to go back to the code. So I'll copy the script, and I just have this basic playwright start in here. I can paste the code, and that's it. I'm basically done, and I can start executing.
Yeah, and also I think one thing, Kari, if you go back to the inspector, for it to be like really, I mean, for the script to be complete, you could also add the arguments. So for all these, based on the type of the element, so this is the fill. So if I want to fill company with a specific value, it's already there. And now if you copy this code, you will actually have a completely workable code that you need not even do anything, any modification for it to be complete and run.
Yeah, so essentially it's I only did it for one, but basically you can go and pick all the actions that you want, fill it in the inspector and come in here, or you can bring it in here and do the fill in here. So it's like pick your own poison and get cracking. One thing that I did not so for the browser locators, like with all the locators, if you just give it a name, it's stored. So company name, let's save a couple of those. Maybe let's change that to something more pleasant. So by naming the locator, it is automatically saved, and you can see that they are saved. And once you have saved them, they are visible on the manager side.
Cool.
What else? So that's basically the main core of the web locator things. There are a lot of features in here. So like I stated here, it's this viewport size. It's not just for my demos. One of the reasons why we added there is that in some cases the websites render differently when they are in a different viewport, and this affects the screen captures and stuff like that. So you can now control that also in here, and then kind of go through all of the motions. And there are also like screenshots, and there's a lot of interesting little features. But the main feature that I do want everybody to remember is that we provide a really good set of these best cases of your editor, but just by putting in here, this is just a text field. So you can really go to town with your own specific locators and work with them. And one key thing is that when you're kind of doing this, so let's say that I'm in the middle of inspecting. I know in the middle I close things, but I'm in the middle of inspecting. I want to take the code. I go back into the Python side. You notice that the website doesn't close. So if I'm logged into a site, it stays there. I can go to my code and paste and do my code stuff, and then I can go back and okay, I need to continue inspecting. So the inspector says here, as long as I don't change to another inspector type, we keep the browser open. It stays on the same site. You can keep going. What else?
Cool. Kari, before we move to the next topics, I have a few questions. Some of them already answered, but Hugo asked how to install. You need not have a separate installation. It already comes with the VS Code extensions that Kari showed in the beginning. There's also a question on probably challenge that they're facing. Alex, the open browser button does not work for me in VS Code. Alex, if you could just give us a bit more details on what's happening. Is it on the inspector tool? That'll be very useful. I mean, Kari is here. We can certainly try to get answers. We will follow up with offline answers for sure. But if we can solve it here, nothing like it. So please describe what you're at.
Yeah, so that's really, really a good point, because that's the thing that I wanted to point out. We're only a few people doing the inspector in as a whole, so we don't expect it to be kind of like all the way polished. We just found one bug thanks to, oh man, I forget the name, but somebody reported a bug just yesterday in the Slack. So please keep us honest and keep pushing the things out. The one thing that I do like to highlight, that in the extension, we have the submit issue. This is really critical for us, because if you submit the issue via this, we get the logs, we get the versions, we get if you're running on Mac, Windows, Linux, like those are really critical ones, and we don't want to waste anybody's time asking the same questions over and over again. So yeah, definitely, if you have a problem, like we've dealt with enterprise firewalls blocking things and virus scanners blocking things. So yeah, we do expect that there are some cases still out there that we haven't met. So don't be hesitant on using the submit issue thing.
Yeah. And the question which we should have already taken. Thanks so much for asking this question, George. Will it be possible to add expression with like and or like the combination of expression for the locator?
Yeah. I had a teaser. I have a teaser later on that. I'll show it off. I'll show it off in the Windows locator part.
Awesome. So George, we will definitely answer that, but also they say it's actually quite a nice job, quite a nice feature to use for web. So thanks so much for feedback, and goes to all the way to Kari and the entire team.
Yeah, I do want to repeat my shout out to Cosmo, because designing the UX for a tool this complex, we're trying to keep things simple and doing some really complex stuff. So the DX design was not easy by any stretch of the imagination, and I do think that we need feedback on this. That is it what actually functions and what do we need to polish off? But this is, in my point of view, this is really, really good. So cool. I know I have my certain classes on to be viewing this, but yeah.
Okay.
Good to hear.
That's cool. Thanks, Kari and George. So let's go to the next set of things on Windows, please.
Yeah. So I'll close off the web thing and let's jump onto the Windows. So I'll show off. This is my shout out to Tejus. Tejus provided us with some really cool looking. I feel nostalgic. I'm old enough to have implemented some Windows Form applications, so this UI brought me back. And the reason why we wanted to showcase this kind of a thing is that this is unfortunately a reality in many automation cases still. True. So True. You're not automating the fancy new UIs that might even on the framework level nicely put out the automation IDs and stuff like this. So that's why we want to show this kind of a thing off. But jumping into the Windows Inspector. So basically, when you start it up, we scan for Windows applications. If you open up the application later on, just refresh the list, and you should be able to find your application on the list. So you select the application, we connect to it, and then we start picking. So basically, after you're running the picker, you can go over the UI. We went for the hover. So there's a bit of a delay, and then we pick out when you hover over the item. The reason why we did that is that you are able to interact with the elements before we highlight it. So if you want to kind of go in and press submit and cancel, you can do it, and it's not constantly highlighting the thing. This was the thing that we were annoyed with the Microsoft application insights, that it's constantly, like, it's so hectically highlighting things that we wanted to give a bit of breathing time for the user to kind of figure out. So that's the way we went. So let me show an example. So let's hover over the submit item. And what you can see here, so you can see the element 3. You can see the elements that we picked out, again, that these are the most common things. So you can see the automation ID. I'll explain a bit more about the path, name, class, control. These are the things that we've seen most people using the automation on. But this is only the UI. What I mean by that is, let me show you an actual case. So let's say I want to pick the name submit. I can test the rule. And like with the validation on the web browser side, we can always test. I can see I get 3 hits. They are highlighted on the UI. So what do I do right now? I want to select that one, but I got all 3. So I go back. Let me pick out, is there something around the item? So there's no frame around here, but there is the group box around everything. So let me pick that one. I can see that it's a group control. That looks dynamic to me. That looks very dynamic to me. And the automation ID is group box one. So that's definitely a dynamic thing. And that will change the second that the new group box comes in. So let me pick the new user. Let's test the rule. It highlights it, looks good. I'll add it to the rule builder. So now here we have the first rule. Then I want to pick the submit element under it. So I could go and pick it from here, but I can also see it from here. So I can see the elements. And if I click into the submit one, it highlights it on the UI here. And I can see the fields that I want to select. So let me select button control and submit. Again, the automation ID seems to be dynamic. So that to me seems like a valid rule. I'll add it to the rule again. So now we have a parent-child rule. The syntax is really simple. So basically you have the control name. We have and we have or. I'll show it show it off. Don't worry. Or and then this indicates that we're looking for a submit button with control type button control. That is the child of this element. And you can keep going. So we provided ample space. If anybody is able to fill in the whole text box with a locator, please ping me. I like to see it. the widest locator might get a swag bag or something. But in reality, I do think that 99% of the cases are solved by a simple one-level parent-child rule and selecting the correct rule set. I'm a bit afraid what kind of challenge I just put out, because I might be getting some really weird rules and locator sets. So
yeah. Definitely there are going to be some of us who are going to play around and send some nasty locators. We're already getting some volunteers that are going to try.
Maybe I shouldn't have spoken anything.
We will keep the promise though. But we will keep the promise though. The most interesting, most complicated ones, I will ensure that we will send some swags.
I did not give any heads up to Tejus about this. It just kind of popped into my head that maybe somebody gets really crazy. But yeah, like with anything else, you can then kind of save the locators. So I would put this like submit button or something like that. So it's saved. And yeah, and then I want to kind of show the OR rule. I would really like to know where this is needed. But basically, you can build your locators like this. So let's try out that one. So I've been trying to hunt down what is the case where the OR rule actually applies and makes sense, but it is there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, Kari, there are situations where some of the ERP applications will have titles or buttons which gets dynamically allocated with some values. For example, if it's PO or non-PO, right? So I mean it's those types of cases where it could be either this type of item or the other one. In both the cases, it's going to be the same button or same element that you need to click.
So the content change. Oh yeah, translations. That's the use case that now I get it. But yeah, so kind of moving on down the line. So basically, just like with the website, we have the action builder here. So the code is generated here that you can get, and you can here also do like set values and add arguments and choose whether you want to click or select or take a screenshot or So essentially the same kind of code generation that was on the website is available in here as well. And basically you can just push the actions, and the UI is slightly different, but basically you can then go back into the thing and copy the whole script, or stay in the application developer and kind of copy the individual lines and then again go back into your code. So we try to keep the UX as similar as we can and build out the structure from there. But the main heart of the thing is in the fact that we're picking, and you can pick an item, and then you can choose whether to browse in the tree or go back into picking. And the rule creation is where the heart is at. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're trying to balance the thing that with the UI, you can easily create quite complex rule sets, but still always being able to test and go back to picking and like keep churning the rules until you're happy with it. That's the main point. And on that notion, I will mention the path side. So if you have a control that just doesn't have anything identifiable, the path strategy is one thing that we have. So basically this goes through the tree. So it starts from the application root. It selects the third item. From the third item, it selects the 10th item. And from that item, it selects the first item in the tree. So this is a really hardcore way that if you know that the structure of the UI tree stays the same, then you can use this directly. And again, on the feedback note, these are the fields that we've seen. We can add more. And if you know the fields, you can add them manually in when you're making the rule. So like I said, you can basically choose if there's a field that you know is there, but we don't have a UI for it, ping us. We'll see if we get enough pings, then we'll add it into the UI to make things simpler.
Kari, one question. I think this is something that we anyway wanted to show in terms of creating context. We said but we could also create more relation between the elements, especially if it is group elements or panels. So if in this new user group there is a submit button, if you can click that, start showing that submit button. But if I just click it as a submit button, there is going to be there are at least 3 submit buttons. So
yep,
how do we make that happen?
So that's basically what. So maybe I'll show it like this. So if I just pick out the submit, I get 3 hits.
Correct.
So the way I make it unique is I go one element above. So I browsed in the tree here.
Mm-hmm.
I select the new user. So now I'm selecting the group box. Let me clear the old rule. That's the parent.
Mm-hmm.
Then I navigate to the submit button. I select the detail and add it. And now I'm basically selecting only the submit button that exists inside a group box named new user.
Super. Yeah, I thanks for showing this, because I think this is also super useful to narrow your selection to groups so that you are 100% sure on the context, and then there can be so many elements which look similar, so that you have this capability to focus on the right section of the applications when there are so many elements on the screen.
Yeah, and we do know that there are a lot of these strategies like siblings and next to and above and below, but yeah, again, for the majority of the cases, we see that the parent-child rule is really, really powerful. That
correct.
If you hone down that scales your searches and it scales down the things that you're looking for. And yeah, we do know that there are a lot of other strategies out there, but we just didn't have the time to check into those yet. And yeah, we're always looking for the use case that absolutely brings it up. And of course, there are a million and one old UIs there, and they can do really weird stuff. So, yeah.
Cool. Moving on to the next one, shall we?
Yeah. So essentially, the difference between the Windows inspector and the Java inspector is on the UI side and on the usability side is pretty minimal. On the backend side, it's a completely different beast. So essentially, we attach to the Java applications via Java Access Bridge. And the reason why we do that, again, is that the UI-based locators, they are really erratic on Java applications. If you try to automate them as Windows applications, you get specific types of problems. And when we get to the image-based locators, I'll explain why the UI-based things, while sometimes needed, it should be the last resort. So for the Java applications, the usability is pretty much the same. So we scan for Java applications, and we only list the ones that are actually Java applications. You do need to activate the Java Access Bridge. We'll ping the documentation later. We have full guides on how to do that. But this is the way that we access the Java side. So I get, again, connected to the application, and basically all the functionalities are pretty much the same that they are for Windows side. But if I pick, for example, the OR gate element from the tree, this is where you see the difference between a old Windows application and an old Java application. So the UI tree is much deeper, and it's in many ways it's more convoluted, and you need to be kind of picking things more carefully, and things are a bit slower, or even on the picker, to be honest. But still, the logic is the same on the UI itself. Maybe I'll move it around. So essentially, you see the full tree. You can navigate the tree just like I showed earlier, and you can create the rules just like I showed, and you can test the locators, and it should highlight it. What did I break? I broke something. Let me test it again. So maybe the OR rule will be found. Did I manage to hit a demo effect? Let's pick it again. I should be able to get it. Yep. I want the name. Maybe the role isn't the one that I want. Yeah, this is the thing that for Java, the logics are not always the same that on the Windows side, but we do support the same rules. So the parent-child rule and OR rules, they are all available, and the test locator functionality. So you are able to test it. It highlights it on the UI and shows you how many hits you get.
Yeah.
The saving again the same way.
You will be also be able to use those expressions, right? Like you will be able to use those conditions,
Right.
and then
yeah. So the syntax is exactly the same. The only thing that changes are the field names, and the fields that we show here are a bit different than from the Windows one, because again the control element types are quite different from the Java side. But we did want to provide the similar kind of like general feeling that, okay, these are the things that we think are the most usable fields for automation. Again, keep us honest. If you think that there's absolutely a field that should be here, tell us, and we'll see if we can add it.
Yeah, I think showing the tree is already a big bonus. So that's what we are starting to hear. It's been
you can,
a week and a half since we have released this. So please keep us posted on what else you would need from these Java-based locators as well.
Yeah, so this is the thing that I can also kind of show, that you can navigate the tree just like in the previous one. And yeah, maybe I'll again. The tree is so wide that I need to widen my screen a bit. So basically, if I create like that, and let's pick the same OR gate from there, put the name, and let's do it like that. So this is a parent-child rule, so it's exactly the same, and it highlights up. So yeah,
cool. One very good question coming in from LinkedIn. How can I actually know that I need to use Java-based locator?
That's a good.
That's actually a good question, and also I think brings to the point why you have explained this once, but maybe good to reiterate. Why do we need another inspector tool for Java? What is it different? Why not just the same Windows inspector? I mean, if you could answer both the questions, Kari.
Yeah, so I think that's the thing, that how do you recognize a Java application? It's not always easy. Usually, you know it when if you start to like inspect it as a Windows application, you might just see one element or 1,000 little elements that make no sense, because again, depending on the framework that the UI has been built on, the Java application could only use like the Windows canvas, and it's only a drawing surface for it. So that's why we use the Java Access Bridge, so that we can actually get inside the Java UI's elements. So we get a similar access to the Java application that we have for a normal Windows application.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a really good question. How do I know when to use it? Java has been around for a long time, and there are a lot of ways of creating Windows applications that are actually Java applications on the background. So yeah, I don't have a good answer other than that if it looks like a really weird Windows application on the UI tree, try the Java, check out if it's a Java application.
Yeah, and I think practically, if as you explained, if the Windows applications that you are trying to inspect on is not exposing a lot of elements, there is a fair possibility that it could be a Java application. So that gives you a hint to try this Java inspector then.
Yeah, so kind of just showing that, for example, this logism, it's just an executable like any other executable.
Correct.
It's not really visible on that level, but yeah, let's just say that when you've been around a while, you can spot a Java application immediately, just like you can spot the Windows Forms and the Windows Presentation Foundations. But yeah, not the best of answers, but that's why we have the Java inspector as a separate one.
Yeah, no hate on Java applications. All respect to Java as the technology and all the Java developers that have built amazing applications in the decades before us. But yeah, it's so
my
true
bias. Yeah, my bias might be showing. I have been around. I've done some Java applications, and it's one of the languages that, how do I say it? I'm not that much in love with, but I do know that some great stuff have been done with it. But yeah,
fair enough. Keep the questions coming. Keep your feedbacks coming, please. We have about 10 minutes. Kari, do you want to show something more in Java, or shall we head on to the image inspector? Yeah,
I think I'll show this one last. So this is another thing where our biases show. So usually, and in all of our documentations, we say that you should only work to image-based locator, so the UI level automation, when you absolutely have to. This should be your last resort in a sense. But we do recognize that sometimes you just need the image-based locators. So we have the image-based inspector also included in the thing. So essentially, it's just take a snapshot. Let me pick out an area there, and it shows. The reason why we highlight these as being brittle and taking extra care is actually visible in here. This is why we show the resolution, pixel ratio. When you're doing image-based locators, it's all about, well, it's image recognition. So if you change your theme, if you change your resolution, anything that you change on the UI, or if the application developer moves the button or changes the drawing style or something like that, these things break. But we do realize that sometimes you have to do them. So we have them here. You can pick them from the UI. Then you can set the confidence level, and you can save the locator just like the others. And when you're navigating on the Locator Manager, you can actually see the screenshots from here. And yeah, we store everything in the locators JSON. So in the end, all of the locators that you save, they're just in the JSON. So the image is in the JSON, everything is stored inside your robot. So there are no extra files or formats. It's just that located JSON, it stores everything. And that's maybe the comeback to the first one. So when you save a locator, we don't just save the locator, we save all the options. So let's say you picked a locator and you saved it, and you realized, okay, maybe I selected this strategy, but it's not working. You do not have to repick it. You can just go into the manager, select another, and try that one out. We store this so that you can reuse and retry without always going back and picking. And another cool thing that when you have, say, a web locator specifically for Windows and application locators, this is not possible because we would have to launch the application. But for the websites, you can validate. So I did not have the website on or anything like that, but essentially I can do the validation directly from there. So it opens up the website that you have stored. It tries it out. Is it still working? So this is really powerful if you have to go in and check that, hey, what's wrong with my locators? You can go here and validate one by one, check if they're still fine, fix the ones that aren't, and be done with it. Good.
That's cool.
What else?
What else? Do you have anything planned to cover? I have one question from the audience already. Will you create a similar plugin for PyCharm?
That's the nasty question. Yeah. So I know we've been implementing the LSP extensions and these extensions, and yeah, basically every single developer that I've talked to says that, okay, yeah, it would be cool to have it in PyCharm, but it's a whole other implementation. It's basically doing everything over, and yeah, I don't know how to say it politely. It's so much easier to develop a VS Code extension than it is to implement the PyCharm implementation. Yeah. The code is, of course, our code is open source. Everything about this is open source. So this is I'm putting on my engineering director hat. Our team simply cannot implement the PyCharm one, but if there's willingness in the community, our codes are open. The logic behind this is built on the libraries that are open source and provided by us. So I don't know how to say it, but have at it. I think that's my comment.
Yeah, fair answer. I think that's where we are focused currently, because we have large part of our customers and partners are all being on VS Code. It's been the choice of our customers and partners, and yeah, we have this all open source. If there is enough engagement and enough enthusiasm in the community, we'll be happy to sit with some of you and get this built. If there is enough backing, enough reasons.
And
cool.
Yeah, one more thing that I like to highlight, I think we'll post this as well, but we have links and resources around the locator. So if you don't remember anything from my babbling and we cannot find out what I was meaning, we do have the doc site on the locators inside Visual Studio Code. And here we have cool little intro videos from our amazing video generator, Eki. So we have short video descriptions on how to use these things and the documentation. So for example, the things that are discussed about the Java access bridge, the enabling it is defined in here. So yeah, please check out the documentations. Any other questions? I think we're well on time.
Yeah. And as I'm doing, as we are speaking, I am sharing some of these links so that you have easy access to our documentation. Also,
and on
some of the videos that we have built.
Yeah. So on the question, is there a possibility that the Windows-based Java-based inspectors are not sufficient? And if not, how frequent is it? Based on what I've seen, it's quite rare, but it's not. It's rare, and that's why we have the image-based locators. So it's a combination, and even outside of image-based locators, if the locators are not working, there's still ways to automate, like with hotkeys. So that's one thing that maybe we should even mention in the locator documentation, is that if your application has hotkeys, check them out. They are by far the fastest way. So they are faster than any of the above. So if there's an application that has hotkeys for the actions that you're doing, just sending hotkeys to the application, it's by far the fastest way to automate. But unfortunately, hotkeys have been kind of coming and going. I've been looking at the industry since 1999. So it's one of those things that back in the day, they were mandatory by Windows, for example, that you had to have a hotkey, you had to have a file menu, and all of the actions that you had on the UIs. These fads come and go. So, but that is a key thing to remember, that it's not just locators that allow you to automate reliably and fast.
True. And also one more feedback thank you for providing this tool, and it'll be very useful for desktop automations. Yeah, that's indeed true. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Keep the feedback coming. That's the thing that I want to end on.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kari, for joining me. I hope to have more people from your team. I hope Cosmo also would join us next time, and we will bring more guests on this show, more of the engineers who are building these cool features. And of course, please keep the feedback coming. Please let us know what type of features that will help you build your automations. The AI frenzy is here. We are all moving towards a new era of enterprise knowledge workers using AI meaningfully in their work. That is provided with generative AI actions, and GPTs and LLMs. That's true. However, there is going to be that very cool layer of automation that is needed. So all the skills that you have harnessed through the years will be very handful and very, very handy in these situations as well. So thanks again for joining Product Hour Live. Until we see you next time, take care. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.